Hi there. Welcome to the second episode of Dilyn's Dialogues. I'm so grateful you're here with me. In the first episode, we talked about a big pivot in my life, my decision to step away from college for now and the path that I thought I was on and create new possibilities like this podcast. It was about honoring change in the face of uncertainty, and that can be scary. Before we dive in, though, I would like to point out a distinction between grief and regret. Because when we make a big life pivot, often it can bring up feelings of both. But regret is more about wishing you had made a different decision. And grief is more about the feeling of the loss of what could have been, even when you feel like you made the right decision for you at the time. And as I've been pondering this, I've realized that I'm not experiencing regret, but rather grief. Grief for the version of my life that I thought I would be living right now. The truth of the matter is, I miss school. I miss learning. And I've had a goal of obtaining my bachelor's degree for over 25 years. So to put that on hold means that I'm experiencing grief. You know, I want this podcast to be real and raw and relatable. And in order for that to happen, it means I need to be vulnerable with my thoughts and feelings. I feel like that's the only way this podcast is going to be truly authentic for me and for you. With that said, here's a quick disclaimer. I am a mental health advocate, but I am not a licensed therapist. This is not meant to replace therapy, and some of what I say may be triggering. If you find yourself triggered, please pause, practice self-care, whatever that looks like for you. Reach out to a trusted person, and you may even call 988, 24/7 crisis hotline. So when we think about grief, we often think about death. And certainly the death of a loved one or even a beloved pet, that's grief. But grief shows up anytime we experience loss. It doesn't differentiate between life and death or healthy and unhealthy. So even if you lose a relationship that's toxic for you, even if it was your choice to walk away from that relationship, it's still a loss. And loss is loss. And it may mean that you experience grief. And with grief may come sadness. So it could be something like the loss of a job, the loss of an identity that we once carried, loss of relationship, even the loss of dreams and goals that we had for our future, as is the case for me right now. Grief is simply the process of moving through loss. But there's a type of grief that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's called disenfranchised grief. For those of you who don't know Dr. Ramani, she's amazing. She has a podcast. She has a healing community. She's written many books. One of them is It's Not You. And in her book here on page 197, she describes disenfranchised grief as grief that is not acknowledged by others or socially sanctioned and supported as a loss or grief experience. So, with disenfranchised grief not being widely recognized, it can lead people to feel as if they don't have a good enough reason to be sad. I'm guilty of this. I can have a tendency to beat myself up over being sad and even go to the point of saying, well, so-and-so didn't die, so why am I so sad? Or in the case of college, I'm experiencing grief over the things that my mind's eye thought for the future, the things that I miss about it. I even went so far as to buy a certificate, a fake diploma on Amazon, and I was going to hang it on my wall as a sort of a vision board, if you will, so that when times got tough, I could look at that diploma and remember what I was working towards. When we beat ourselves up about experiencing disenfranchised grief, it can lead to feelings of isolation. It can lead to us stuffing down our feelings of sadness and silencing ourselves. It can even lead to us not even recognizing that we're experiencing grief. I have personally lived with a lot of disenfranchised grief. I've lost relationships with nearly all of my family of origin. October is a particularly difficult month, as this October marks the 4th year of everything that changed within my family of origin. About a year and a half ago, I quit my long-time steady job that provided stability and a sense of value for me to pursue my goal of going to college. And as you know, more recently, I've decided to put that on hold. And instead, I'm pivoting and doing this podcast. And here's the complicated truth. I am thrilled and excited to be here and have this opportunity to create this podcast and share with you my story. And I'm also grieving lots of things, but more specifically, the things that I imagined for myself, like getting this degree and graduating and meeting new people and research projects. The thing is, excitement and sadness can exist side by side. Both can be true. The nature of disenfranchised grief is that it's not widely recognized in the world around us. That doesn't make it any less real. Allowing ourselves to grieve what we've lost, whether or not others understand, it opens up space for acceptance and embracing what's next, the new possibilities around the corner. Change is never easy. As I raised my son, I used to always tell him the only thing in life that's constant is change. And it's so true. We're always changing and evolving. But sitting with our grief doesn't mean we're stuck, right? We're changing. It's a change. We can view that as a good thing, in that we're processing that feeling. And feelings, they don't stay forever, right? So we might be feeling grief and sadness now, but it can pave the way for growth, new chapters and new experiences and new versions of ourselves. So I'll leave you with this. Whatever grief you might be carrying, know that it's valid, that you're allowed to be sad, and that you're allowed to sit with your sadness. And just know that this space is a safe space for you to recognize that, and also open yourself up to making room for something new. And at the same time that I remind you of that, I'm reminding myself of that. So again, this podcast is about healing together and going on this journey together. So I thank you for coming along for the ride. And until next time, be safe, be well, and thank you for listening.